Hello everyone. So for today's presentation, I will be talking about the more and less about what does it mean by interior design and what are the different thing between interior architecture, interior design, or even interior decorator. What we have in ALFA College, we actually try to emphasize on the technical and also design ability. Basically, for the first year, you can see it is actually referring and related to the subject which we uh, try to give general overview and general understanding about the design towards the students. In the first year of interior design studies, there will be a subject, for example, the technical drawing one. This will be one of the most important subject which requires students to actually understand the technical ability, as I said earlier. And beside that, we do emphasize on the conceptualization and also design visual communication. So looking into this first year, most of the time the student required to have hands-on and practical work, and also they are introduced to use the computer. So beside that, we do cover also the subjects such as a history of Eastern and Western architecture, where most of the time the student they will always need to refer to the old architecture and design style so that they can actually improvise the design, if improvise the design so that it can fit to the modern generation. Talking about the career opportunity, most of the time by looking into the term of interior design or interior architecture program, some of us we may have the thought of it is very difficult for you to get job outside there. But for me, as a practitioner or even as an educator in this field, I would say that there are a lot of job opportunity for you to get involved if you finish the study in interior design or interior architecture. And some of us we may limit our mind and we may limit our ability to just to have the diploma and just work as an interior designer, whereby actually by having and by holding the diploma in interior architecture, you can actually diversify your talent, not only in the interior architecture firm, but you may can also enjoy and you may can also get involved in architecture, engineering, and also visual communication company. So here is some of the career opportunities. Of course, the first and most important thing, you will become the interior designer. So if you are not working as an interior designer, you can also join the architectural company. And by looking into this architectural company, usually you will be hired to be architectural assistant. And beside that, if you are love to use computer, most of the time you can actually get involved with the job as CAD designer or even the AutoCAD freelancer whatsoever. So beside that, if you are good enough and if you're really confident to actually deal with people, deal with the contractor, you will have no problem to actually become a property manager, and also you can become the assistant site manager. So the rest of the career opportunity you can see here is actually I list down not all the opportunity of career. I only list down some of it. Actually, if I want to give you the every single career in this field, I would say that you have plenty of work. Maybe you have more than 100 for me to describe here. Next, I will be actually talking about the what are the difference between the interior decorator and interior design or even interior architecture. People, by looking into this interior design field or interior architecture field, most of the time public they may have the wrong understanding looking into this term interior designer or interior architecture. Talking about the interior designer, for example, I would say that most of the time people you will be dealing with aesthetic only. Okay, by looking into the word or the term of aesthetic, actually you are referring to the how you can actually beautify a space, okay, without looking and without thinking the functionality and the practicality of the space. So most of the time you can see, to become interior designer, I will say that you don't need to have a specific qualification, but you are required to have the talent and creativity in yourself. So if you have the creativity, if you have the talent, I would say that most of the time you are able to decorate your house, you are able to decorate your office, or you are able to decorate any space you wanted to. When it comes to the terms of interior architecture, uh, it will be a bit complicated, I can say, in the term of most of the time this interior architecture, you are required to understand the architectural drawing, okay? And beside that, uh, if you want to join and to work in the interior architecture firm, you have to actually understand how is the project management, okay? Especially talking about the construction, the documentation, what are the things you need to do on site, what are the documents you need to prepare in order for you to make sure that the project will be going on smoothly on site. So beside that, interior architecture also, most of the time you will be dealing with the architect, contractor, engineer, and even consultant. To be the interior architecture, to work in the interior architecture firm, we have to actually understand there are some process we need to go through in order for us to come up with the final design. So the first thing we need to do the research. Second, you have to actually develop your design, and then after you develop your design, you have to actually draw all the drawing, including your floor plan, your reflected ceiling plan, your elevation, and your built-in feature detail and whatsoever. So this is important for us to look at. So to be as interior architecture, to work in interior architecture firm, we have to actually uh, we have to be very sensitive toward our environment, especially looking into the interior context. We have to understand that the space need to breathe normally, and we as designer, we as interior architecture, we need to make sure that the space we have can be functional, and also it can be good for people to move around. Next, I will be touch on the general overview about what you'll be doing if you study in this interior architecture program. So as I said earlier, the first year of the program, it is actually more to the introductory to the fundamental knowledge and the skill of design. Okay, so for this particular year, in the first year, as I said, the student required to have the ability in drawing and also imagination. So if you can see in this slide, the student actually introduced to design their own personal space. Looking into the personal space, you have to imagine that you will be living in a small space, 3 meter by 3 meter space. And then what are the furniture you need to have in the design is actually depending on your own preferences, depending on your own ability. So by looking into this small space, it will be a bit challenging for us as designer to actually design and make sure that the space will be uh, functional and work smoothly. So come to next, you can see that the students with the corrugated board, this is one of the subject where the student will be introduced to know how to develop the concept. So by looking into these images, the student actually derive the design of corrugated board from the onion. And you can see from the onion, the students are able to transform the onion to be the shelter for a person. So next, you can see here is also another drawing ability subject which requires students to do modeling and also to do sketching. So in this first year, the student, as I said, they will be introduced towards the different media in rendering, different media and making or constructing the model. And come to next, this will be the commercial project where if you can see in the first year just now, the student actually introduced to understand the personal space. If you go for these commercial spaces, you are starting to deal with the public. So by looking into the public, we have to understand there are a lot and different category of public user. Example, we are going for children, we are having teenager, you are having youngster, you are having adult, or we are having also the old citizens. Each and every category require different preferences in design. So we as designer, as I said, we have to be very sensitive. We have to actually understand what do they need in order for them to move smoothly in a space. So that would be the challenge for us to be an interior designer. So talking about the second year, if you can see the first year, you are introduced in the personal space and also the commercial space. While if you go for the second year, you will be doing the and you'll be dealing with the projects such as the institutional interior, and also you are going for the final year, which is you are free to do any project you want. But bear in mind that your final year project, you have to make sure that at the end of the day, your project will be beneficial to the public, not only to an individual, but as I said, it is actually the holistic program. You have to make sure that your project are able to give benefit to all of people. And also here in this second year, you actually will be going for your practical industry training, which is you will be going and working with the company. You will be knowing how to deal with the interior architecture design project. So this is one of the institutional interior design, as I said, which required students to understand different spaces, especially the space that need the space required public to use it. So this is example is actually referring to an office. So by looking into an office, uh, we have to understand that in an office we have a lot and different category of spaces. So we as designer, we have to actually understand what is the function of every single space in the office so that we can accommodate those spaces with the adequate furniture design and also material finishes. So this is another subject which requires students to use computer. So basically you can see that this is actually not 100% by the computer. Before they develop and use the computer, the student, they have no choice. They actually need to develop their design until they can produce this kind of work. So usually for in the development process, the student, they are required to do sketching, they are required to use rendering, and also they have to study about the material and also the lighting. So at the end of the day, when they transform the drawing from the sketching in the computer, they can actually understand how does all these elements will be able to work together or to be a harmony design at the end of the day. And this will be one of the subject which we call as institutional furniture. In this design furniture subject, the students are required to design their own furniture. As I said, your furniture, it must serve purpose and it must be beneficial to the public. So looking into this, you can see that we are not only designing the furniture, but the challenge will come when the students need to produce the technical drawing or the construction drawing of those furniture. By looking into this construction drawing, the students really need to understand what are the material they will use for the project, and also what are the detailed drawing. I mean, like looking into this detailed drawing, we need to say the student has to have to understand how to join from one material to another, and what are the material or the mechanism they need to use in order to make sure that the furniture will be uh, function smoothly for the public. So it is important for the student to understand not only in the design aspect, but definitely the student has have to understand the technical part of it. By looking into design analysis, the built environment, the student basically have to understand the traffic flow. The student have also to understand the sun orientation and what are the building element, what are the building analysis, and also what are the adjacent building around their site. So by looking into this element, the student will know what is the appropriate project for them to propose into that particular site. From all the study on site, the student has to actually apply all the knowledge, all the research, and all their understanding in the previous semester towards the final project. So this will be one of the example of the final year project. It looks very small, but in terms of the study and the research, this we call it as an institutional spaces, which is actually childcare center. Looking into this, it's a bit difficult for we as a normal human being to understand what are the needs of children. So when it comes for designing the space for children, we have to understand, we have to definitely understand what are the materials suitable for those children and what are the suitable shape or form we can have in our design for this particular category of human being, which is the children. So from this, you can see that the final furniture design, uh, one of the subject or one of the design they derive from the children care center just now. So these students actually they are creating and developing the activity chair, activity bench for the small children. So you can see from the design, it looks very attractive when the student actually try to derive and develop the concept of furniture design from the dinosaur. These students are successful to design and to play with the elements such as color, material, and also form in order to make the furniture looks more realistic and looks more fun.